person.
I feel like I have heard that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which I knew. Yeah, I knew. I just didn't know his name, I guess.
Same here, yeah.
His name was Gary Heidnick. They portrayed him in the media when he was arrested, which hooray for the people that arrested him, because whoa. He was misrepresented because he was a cisgender heterosexual male that would cross-dress. And they said that he was transgender and that he wanted to be a woman, and basically made it so that the public started fearing people that were identifying as transgender, because now they're monsters that kill people and not humans that you work with.
They put the face of a murderer on it.
Right, exactly. And as we all know, branding is branding, and it needs to stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that all being said, just to give you a little bit of back history on why this was so important for us to be able to cover someone, because we've looked for a lot of different podcasts, for documentaries, for a number of other things, even movies. The only one that right now is Boys Don't Cry with Brandon Tina, which was a huge case.
There was actually a really amazing and it's based off of a true story, and it was a Showtime movie years ago in the early to mid 2000s, and it was called Soldier's Girl, and it's about a trans woman who is dating, I believe he's in the army, and are you familiar with this?
And he
gets killed because he loves her.
Oh, missed that one. No.
He gets killed in a really terrible, brutal way.
No, I did read another one where a military soldier killed his girlfriend in the Philippines because he found out that she had surgery scars from her gender reassignment.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to talk to you about the murder of Nireah Johnson, who was a transgender woman of color, and her friend, Brandie Coleman, who was a cisgendered female person of color. Brandie was referenced as a slight, pretty girl with a singing talent that she inherited from her dad. Everyone said that she was super sweet. She was a very good girl. In one of the articles that I read, it said that because of the circumstances that surrounded her in general, she eventually dropped out of high school and had gotten pregnant with a daughter who she loved crazy dearly.
Yeah, I mean, so far it sounds like I'd be friends with her.
Yeah. After she had her daughter, she wanted to get her life super on track. So she was in the process of getting her GED. Now, she's only 18. It's not like it's 10 or 20 years up the pipe. She's 18.
Yeah.
At 18, I don't know what I was doing. Like, sleeping outside, I don't know what I was doing. I was doing stupid shit at 18. I wasn't, like, raising a kid and trying to get my GED and, like, making sure that my life was going to be set up correctly. I was screwing up day and night.
Well, because in retrospect, when you're 18, you're just a baby.
Yeah. She also got a job busing to support her child. She's real cute. So when Nireah and her mother had moved to the neighborhood, she was going by Gregory, which was her birth name, and she and Brandie became pretty fast friends. They grew a little bit apart when they moved to a different location. It happens.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
We're adults. Like, I don't talk to a lot of my friends as much as I want to because they just don't live immediately in my vicinity. So I get it.
Yeah.
I remember 10-cent texts when people send me Ks now, I get infuriated because all I can think is when I was 16 and seriously, it was, oh God. Oh, it definitely was. They charged 10 cents per text because I had just gotten a phone when I was 16.
Oh, yeah. Or you could sign up for a package of 300 text messages.
Oh, they didn't have packages. It was 10 cents a text. And my mother reminded me every time someone sent me a K, it was 10 cents for one letter. When Brandie's daughter was born, Nireah had come back into Brandie's life, and they became really fast friends again.
Great, yeah.
Nireah had a little bit tougher of a go. Her dad was absent most of her childhood. A lot of people that were close to Nireah said that they didn't even know what her dad had looked like until he showed up at her funeral.
Wow.
A lot of people that were close to either the mother, Nikki Taylor, or to, at the time, Gregory, had said that there was a strain between the two because she was presenting as a gay male. I'm going to start talking about Nireah's younger years, which I understand that her birth name was Gregory, and at this time she was going by Gregory, but my preference and my assumption is her preference would be that I would discuss her and as her chosen name, which was Nireah. I want to make sure that she gets represented as the person that she was.
I love that.
When Nireah was 14 in 2000, apparently she had struck her mother. The mother had called the police and she fled. Her mother had decided to sign documentation to say that she was a runaway. There was obvious friction because she was trying to find who she was as a person and her sexual identity.
Her gender identity.
Well, this is, like I said, this is when she was still presenting.
Yeah, she didn't even realize. Yeah. She didn't even realize then.
Some people aren't lucky enough to find who they are.
And I know that it seems like the early to mid 2000s, like it wasn't that long ago, but this wasn't really discussed as much.
No. Oftentimes, her friends would report that she would fall asleep at school after talking to guys during the night, especially on chat lines. The good old days of, was it Live Links? Right? That was a thing, right?
Lava Life. Call now.
Lava Live.
And there was like a really sexy, breathy woman on there, and she's like, "This is who you're going to be talking to."
And you're like, "No, I know you." Nireah had started wearing makeup and her mother's clothes before this interaction, but mostly inside of the house, not usually going outside. Protect yourself. After she was reported to be a runaway, she moved in with her cousin Kyasha Allen. At this time, she started presenting and dressing as female.
It sounds already like her cousin was much more loving and supportive.
Yeah. Her cousin was more a friend and very much accepting.
I'm happy she had at least one person, two people in her life that loved and supported her.
She actually had a lot of friends that, really, really supported her and cared about her.
That's amazing.
And that gave her a lot more ability to be who she was for the unfortunate short time that she was. At this time, she also started losing weight and correcting her voice to be higher to present as feminine. Because she didn't have a job at the time, and because it was hard for her to have a steady place to live and to dress the way that she would prefer to dress, she would borrow money. Sometimes she stole clothes and makeup. She would talk to friends and say that she had gotten beat up a lot and had once reported that she had been chased with a gun. When people would express concern, she would respond with, quote, "I'm not going to let anybody get too close to me."
Wow. Not a great way to live.
Brandie was referred to as the kind of person without an enemy in the world. As we talked about before, there's a lot of misreporting, and there were a couple things, and this is so problematic. There are a couple things that I read that almost blamed Nireah for what happened to her and Brandie, but not outwardly so, but were almost erring on the side of supporting her murderer.
Because let's shame the victim.
Yes, victim shaming is a thing and not acceptable. There were some people that had said about who they refer to as Gregory. So many articles I read. A lot of people had said that he, and I understand that this is not me speaking, this is other people speaking, that he would trick people into thinking he was female because it was funny, where the people that were closest to her understood that she wasn't tricking people. She was trying to protect herself by not outwardly going, "Hey, look."
That's infuriating.
Yeah, it's very I told you, it's upsetting. Upsetting is probably not the word, but there's a lot of words for this, and it's a lot of things. So now we move on to a complete piece of shit. Paul Moore and Curtis Ward.
This is giving me, like, terrible anxiety.
On July 18th, 2003, Paul Moore and Curtis Ward were driving around. Curtis Ward was driving, and Paul Moore was his passenger. Paul was said to be a burly 20-year-old, and Curtis Ward at the time was 24. They ended up seeing Nireah, Brandie, and a friend of Nireah and Brandie's, Adrian, driving around in a car. Nireah and Brandie had convinced the two men to pull over in a gas station, and Nireah and Paul Moore started talking. At the end of the conversation, which wasn't said to be super long, they realized that they had a mutual interest in each other and had exchanged phone numbers. And before she got back into the car, Nireah gave him a quick peck on the cheek. On July 21st, Brandie Coleman had called Moore at his home to speak to Ward because they also had a mutual interest in each other.
Cool. It was like they could go double dating.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And this is, as far as I knew, this is what their intentions were. Nireah and Brandie had driven over, and after a little bit of conversation outside with the boys, they went back into the apartment, and they separated into their respective rooms to partner off, make out, just have chats, just be alone with each other. Things that, I mean, you do that. People do that. Nireah had left her cousin's house saying that she was going to have a quiet night in with her friend Brandie, but her cousin knew that she was going out on the town because she had left with a single-sleeved red shirt, jeans, and her hair down looking like she wanted to go out on the town.
Looking fierce.
Fierce. 2003 Fierce. After a little bit of conversation in the room, and after Moore had reported later that he was kissing on me, the realization, I guess, had come up that Nireah was not biologically considered female and was, in fact, a transgender female. Moore entered Ward's room where Brandie and Ward both were with a .45 caliber Ruger. He said, quote, "Man, I need to holler at you." They went into the kitchen, and Moore had asked Ward if he knew Nireah's sex. Ward said that Nireah looked like a woman, and then they went into the living room where Brandie and Nireah both were now. They questioned them for about 40 minutes. When Nireah had excused herself to go to the bathroom, Moore had followed her. When she pulled down her pants to use the washroom, Moore saw that she was not biologically considered cis female and brought her back into the living room. He said, quote, "Man, this is a boy," and then talked about how his manhood had been violated. He said he should whip their ass or possibly kill them. Quote, "What did you think, I was a faggot?" Sorry, guys.
I mean, we get it. It's a quote.
Yeah, I know. It just makes me upset.
I know, me too.
Nireah had sobbed and said she didn't mean anything. She even said she would, quote, "never do nothing like that again," and would, quote, "turn straight." Moore had pulled down Nireah's pants in front of Ward and Brandie, and then had told Ward to go get some wire. He made Brandie and Nireah lay down face first on the floor of the living room, and they tied them up with the wire. He and Ward placed both of them into her mother's Jeep Cherokee that she had borrowed earlier that night just to go out for a night. He asked Ward to follow him. They drove to Fall Creek Corridor Park in Indianapolis in a wooded area in a cul-de-sac. It was a super small park, and while doing so, Moore drove over a curb, around a locked gate, and into the cul-de-sac in the wooded area, where he shot both Brandie and Nireah in the forehead.
Oh my god.
He started with Nireah first, and he said later he had to calm down Brandie after he shot Nireah. Your friend gets shot.
You're gonna absolutely freak out.
Yeah.
Well, I am enraged, by the way.
You should be.
I'm incredibly upset. So thanks for that.
He met Ward in Ward's car outside of the gate while he was walking up the street. He said, quote, "Man, I had to do it." They went back home, returned a Roto-Rooter to a rental store, and then had gone their separate ways. He would later remark that he watched Nireah flop back after, quote, he was shot the next day when realizing that he could be associated with the crime. He convinced his half-brother, Clarence McGee, and Ward to return to where the bodies were. They went after dark, intentionally, after they had purchased gasoline and things to set the car on fire to get rid of the bodies. Moore told Ward that he looked at him like a brother. Quote, "If anything goes down, they wouldn't have anything to worry about." Here's the stupid thing.
Okay.
You're already an asshole, but now we're tacking on stupidity here because they waited until after dark to set a car on fire.
And they don't think that once the bodies are retrieved, they're not going to find bullet holes in the skulls.
Well, there's that, but this for me, they waited until after dark. About 9 p.m., firefighters were called because of a car on fire. Now, this is the summertime. We get it. Summertime has longer days. But they pretty much just left there and then left a giant flaming car in the darkness where people could not only smell it, but also easily able to pinpoint where exactly the fire was coming from. The firefighters realized that there were bodies in the back seat, obviously called the police. And when it was reported on the news, Brandie's mother, who was very concerned because her daughter had not come home, and with her daughter being a newer mother and taking pride in herself doing her own job, it was clearly very rare for her.
Because she had that sweet baby at home.
Yeah, to not at least give a call to say something went wrong. So she knew something bad had happened. And when she saw the car on the news, she noticed that there was a FedEx plate on the front that she recognized because she worked at FedEx, and it was her vehicle. She was driven to the scene by a friend of hers and had before that called the news station that was presenting this to see where exactly it was and for them to call the police because she thought she knew who was in the body, because at the time they couldn't identify them. The bodies were completely beyond recognition, so the sex, skin color, and generalities of the bodies were burned completely away. So they weren't 100% how this happened, The coroner would later notice that there was blunt force trauma to Brandie's chest and her larynx, and both were shot in the forehead by a .45 caliber bullet. When the bullets were retrieved, they were able to look through past violent crimes. Here's something
from ballistics.
Yes.
Yes.
So here's something kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to make me feel just like not much better, but a little bit better, because I've read it a couple times and I'm like, go police. But when there is a crime that involves a firearm in the county that this had happened in, all guns that are part of any crime and anyone that is taken into custody